Okay, welcome to week 3 of biological aging. Turning back the clock is fun. And this morning, I don't feel like I'm turning back the biological clock. I'm trying to scoot back from the camera because my eyes are really puffy today for some reason. So anyway, good morning. And Dr. Chakalingham welcomes your participation. Please feel free to use the chat or to unmute yourself if you have any questions or comments, if you can. And Dr. Chakalingham, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Good morning, friends in the US. Good evening to our friends from India and other parts of the world. So nice to connect with you through Osher and share this first ever discussion that we are having on the possibility and potential for reversing our biological age. That's the only age that really matters. The chronological age is just a number. So I had requested our friends to get some grapes. So I got some grapes. And in the next few minutes, we can try that, or at the end of it, we can try it. And before we get on with my slides, I would love to hear people's thoughts in the last 2 weeks, any questions, anything that you have changed in your self-inquiry, mindfulness practice, anything that's different for you, or any questions you have. This is a good time to open up some short discussions, and then after that we can go on to the slides, and then we'll definitely have some more time to discuss at the end of the slideshow. You can unmute yourself and talk rather than putting it on the chat.
I don't know if my name is, as I'm the one with my hand up right now. I'm Susan. I had to leave the meeting early last week, but I asked a question about oleic acid in in olive oil. You mentioned that that's really not all the heart healthy that I think we've been thinking it was. Mm-hmm. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. See, the thing is, if you look at various nutritional ingredients, it is very, very challenging to do the type of studies we need to do to show that we can prove benefit. So what we end up doing is looking at cultures and eating patterns and making inferences. So I'm not very aware of this particular ingredient and this particular oil, but by and large, as a cardiologist, what I recommend to my patients and to myself and my family is to recognize that any oil is very high in calories. So I would not add oil for the sake of health. That's how I look at it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
And beyond that, there are definitely some, all the oils are not the same, the way they make them and the way they are processed and how it is cooked and consumed. I'm hearing more and more about coconut oil being very good for specific reasons. We can go an hour into this discussion, but throughout the world, the one oil that has withstood the test of rigorous science has been olive oil. And the one we use is extra virgin variant of olive oil. And we don't add it for health. We use it as the best of the available choices. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Really quickly, before anybody else says anything, I just want to remind you, if you are unmuted, sometimes there's some interference. So if you would wait and unmute yourself just before you talk and then mute yourself again, so we don't get any background interference. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Don't know if we've had this discussion, but while we're on the subject of grapes, how about ethanol derived from grapes, wine, no drinking, mild amount of drinking, moderate, and I guess risk or benefit therein with resveratrol and, the things that supposedly, embody red wine as bonus.
Excellent question. And the final verdict is not completely out, but it's nearly out. That's what I would think, because I started medical school in 1991. Around that time that I was in medical school, there was a lot of talk about alcohol, especially wine. And my own classmates for years, decades, they've been drinking 1 or 2 glasses thinking it's the best way to stay young and protect the heart and things like that. Now, what we are seeing is a little different. And this, again, as I was telling about olive oil, the same challenges come with the beer or a whiskey or wine. But the one that seemed to be better was wine. And the reason wine seemed to have some extra edge might not just be the resveratrol. It may be the affluence of people who have the habit of having wine. So that's what the thinking is in the scientific community now. So it may not be in the alcohol, it may be in their level of education, their choice of activities, along with which a little bit of wine goes into them. So the summary of it that I think we can rely on at this time frame is the DNA methylation aging data. And that, which is the centerpiece of our 4-week course about biological aging based on DNA, it seems to favor zero alcohol. So any amount of alcohol may be a stress on the system. Cigarette, there is no two opinion about it. Cigarette is the biggest accelerator of biological aging. Alcohol may not be that much of an accelerator, but any amount of alcohol may be harmful. That is what DNA APH testing literature is beginning to show.
So you're saying the studies, if you control for income, really don't produce any
the likelihood of having some benefit at low level might not pan out to be true. What the science still says is 1 or 2 drinks for men and up to 1 drink for a woman is okay per day, but don't have to drink for the sake of health. If you're not drinking, you'll be perfectly fine. And if you are in the habit of enjoying alcohol, wine may be a little bit better, and limiting to 1 or 2 drinks is definitely recommended. But nobody has to start drinking for the sake of health. Another 5 years from now, we may say differently. We may say even 1 or 2 drinks is actually giving you trouble. So we might start encouraging complete abstinence. We don't have that data yet. Excellent. Any other quick suggestions, discussions about what we are trying to go through in these 4 weeks? Hey, Marilyn, good to see you, my friend.
I just wanted to say hi, and sorry I missed last week.
Every week we are presenting your same slide. So that slide again, I think I have it today.
Well,
want to tell us a little bit? People might not remember. So in 1 minute, if you want to tell us what you're particularly doing this last week or so that you wouldn't have done if you had not met us in the last 6 months.
I went out to an Osher in person, and I stayed there 5 hours. I had no problems walking from the car to the place. I had no breathing problems. It was just wonderful. And then on Saturday, I actually went to the Pride Fest. I have a trans grandchild, and my daughter was in the parents' tent, you know, talking to people about how it is that you know, how you deal with trans, and she is 100% supportive of her child. And boy, I walked from the car all the way to her tent, and if it hadn't been hot, I could have stayed there. But so you know, every day, I am improving, and in the mindfulness, I haven't had a chance to see your tape of that yet, but in the mindfulness, I am really enjoying that, watching your breathing. I go out on my deck in the evening when it's not too cold or too hot, and just it's so reinvigorating. I mean, it helps your soul, I guess is what I'm saying. So
are you in any way anxious that the gains you have made in the last 4 to 6 months by eating better, losing weight, Do you fear that all that weight might come back and your health will suffer soon, or do you feel confident that you're going to do okay in the future?
Well, I think I've probably lost 1,000 pounds in my lifetime because I've been on so many diets and up and down. And the weight has always come back, and it's always come back heavier than before. But I'm not worried about that now. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be able to keep it off. The hunger thing really works. Um, I This morning, the cold weather makes me more hungry. I don't know about the rest of you, but I seem to be more hungry in the cold weather. But and but the hunger thing really works. If I go longer and longer in between meals, it seems like that is the day that I'm going to lose the weight the next day. And also water, drinking water rather than other things that I used to drink more. So I really, I don't know. I've got to thank you for all of this.
I have to thank you for trying our methods at the age of 80. Now, one last question before we let you go. Doing what you're doing, does it take away your energy, or do you think when you're a little bit hungry, you're actually more hungry, or however you're doing this so many weeks, so many months, how is your energy level in this process? Are you feeling confident?
I, I, I still, I'm still getting, when I take my meds in the morning, it seems to make me not have as much energy. I'm more lethargic. But when I wait to eat, that helps that going down. I mean, um, for instance, I just never got out. I just didn't want to go out. And if I did go out, I wanted to come home and, I would be so tired. But I stayed at the Osher place 5 hours. I wasn't running around. I was sitting watching Osher, but talking. And so I have to say that my energy levels are much better. And the hunger also helps you focus. Um, I always knew that I'm a writer, and when I was writing, I could write and write and write and not feel the hunger until I would, as long as I was focusing on the writing. But now it's kind of reversed. What I had during the pandemic, I didn't write at all. But since I've been doing this regimen, I've written 2 or 3 new things. So I'm excited.
Can we all give Marilyn a big hand for trying our methods and now telling us the summary of today's discussion? Today, we're going to talk about flow, how to connect with ourselves. And that is what you already described beautifully, that you're already back in flow and experiencing your fulfillment in the moment. Thanks so much.
And I'm not going to speak unless you ask me to, because there are a lot of good people with lots of good questions and comments in this group, and I don't want to be taken up the whole time. So I'm not going to speak unless you ask me to. I hope.
Thanks so much. Whatever I was going to say in the next 45 minutes, you've summarized it in a nutshell and said this is who you are. So I cannot thank you enough, Marilyn. Thank you. Some more quick questions, or shall we go on to the slides?
You do have a chat. I don't know if you saw your chats or not. There's one comment. I'm
walking more and more, water drinking, stopped diet drinks. Excellent. This is very nice. So if our biological aging program makes you choose better things, this is the best outcome that I can imagine out of these 4 weeks with our friends. Thank you. Shall we go ahead and get started?
This is Yana, one of the co-hosts. Miss Schooler, yeah, you muted. Thank you. Just could hear you typing.
Jana, would you read her chat, please?
Sure. On your food chart, what is SSNS?
Sugar substituted beverages. SSBs. In that last week's slide, is that what you're asking? Yes. Sugar substituted beverages, SSBs. Any other quick questions? Shall we go ahead with the slides then?
I think that's a great idea. Go ahead.
Do you see it full screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm going to request everyone to mute yourself for the next 30 minutes or so. And then we'll have the grapes, I guess, at the end of this. Good morning, friends. So we are going to talk about what is flow, how it connects with biological aging and improves our heart health. My disclosures are highlifejourney.org website to help improve cardiac health and resilience, and Seeking Hunger is a self-inquiry book that uses eating behavior to improve our self-understanding. First week, we discussed how to measure biological age. Second week, the discussion was on practice of mindfulness. And today's discussion is the benefit of engaging flow and what it is and how to experience it through exercise and other activities. And next Monday, we will have the last discussion on how we put all of this together in helping people regain better health. So this is a reminder. We are not starting in childhood when people are exercising a lot. We are starting at the age of 55. And then when we follow people through 2-3 decades of their life, there's a dramatic reduction in all cardiovascular events and risk for life when people are highly fit. The interesting thing is even moderate level of fitness gives a significant amount of benefit compared to those who start out at the age of 55 in a sedentary way and who are not able to do routine things. So being fit is directly protective, and we can start at the age of 55 towards better health. This is a different concept that looks at protein intake. This I just came across last week when we saw that if you look at protein intake, which is 10% of our diet, and when it goes up to 15, there is a substantial increase. 10 to 15 is not a big increase. When it goes up to 20, the increase is even higher. So what we are seeing is diabetes and heart attack risk goes up significantly with the amount of protein in the food. And this protein typically reflects, unfortunately, a country's affluence, the individual's buying power, because people tend to prefer meat and they consider that to be more sought after. So if people can afford it, say for instance, India has been very poor for several decades, but in the last 2 decades, affluence is increasing significantly in India, and along with that, meat consumption is also increasing. So increasing meat consumption may not be that healthy. That's what this research is telling us. Now I'm looking at social vulnerability index, which the CDC measures just based on the census data. And my request is to mute yourself for the next few minutes. So it takes into account socioeconomic status, household composition, people at young age and old age in the family, and single parent homes, people of minorities, and housing and transportation challenges. So just with this, we are able to predict who are at risk, not only for pandemic or hurricane, but just routine life itself, how much more they are vulnerable based on their social circumstances. And we now know in the last few years that apart from the healthcare, the technologies that we use towards improving patient with a heart attacks health with balloon stent, bypass surgery, so much, at least 40 to 50% of a person's health is determined by social circumstances. And what are the factors there? Education, economic status, neighborhood, and their community. They play such an important role in improving the health care. So to look at the perspective of what causes a person to die prematurely, only 10% of it can be improved by healthcare. Genetic predisposition accounts for nearly a third, social circumstances 15%, environmental challenges about 5%, but nearly 40 to 50% may be related to our behavioral choices. So if this is true for premature death, it is also true for biological age reversal. Physical activity, we discussed this last time. People who are physically active seem to age slower, but this applies only for people who have excess weight. If your weight is in the ideal body mass index range, then by exercising, you might not be able to further reduce biological aging. That is what the latest DNA methylation studies are suggesting. This is again one of the very interesting and provocative papers, and this comes from animal studies. What they are seeing is compared to controls, exercise training, rats and mice, they become much more competent at covering distance and moving at faster pace because they are trained. But then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if the same animals are not getting any food, but the other days they eat normally, their fitness is actually much improved compared to controls. So eating less in normal weight, healthy mice of normal young age, when they get no food for 3 days in a week, alternate days, then their exercise fitness is better. So eating less is an exercise in itself. That's what this makes us think. And this we discussed last time. Much of human history, our life expectancy has been less than 30, 40 years. Only in the last 100 or 150 years, we've significantly improved it and actually doubled it throughout much of the Western world, and the developing world is also catching up. But blue zones, independent of all the scientific advances, remote islands in Japan, Italy, Costa Rica, they are already in their 90s and maybe 100 years as a community, entire populations living longer, healthier lives. So we want to learn, get inspired by these traditional ways of life and the wisdom that they are able to offer the rest of our modern and fast-paced world. Same thing with the Siddha yogis in India. They've lived much more than 100 years, healthily, being productive and active, but they were following their way of life. So it wasn't the entire society. Whereas in the blue zones, it was the entire societies living, and are still, even today, living extremely healthy, vibrant lives into their 90s. So how we understand this in Heartful Living and the High Life series is by looking at ourselves as only the top 10%, including all our willpower, our thinking and logic. But the barrier that prevents us from understanding the role of our emotions and values and habits is important. But that barrier also keeps us away from tapping into our innermost subconscious potential, which is the source of our ability to connect with gratitude and creativity. We engage this scientifically using mindfulness, gratitude, understanding our role in our community, creativity, participation in exercise and sports, engaging in flow, which is what we're going to touch upon today, fasting, ikigai, which is finding meaning in life, and silence. So these are the tools since 2015 that High Life has been employing. So what are the types of exercise? There are thousands of exercises. Definitely sports would be ideal if people can engage in them. Interval training, weight training, moving naturally. And how do we engage in flow? That's what we're going to touch upon today. So this is what I would like you to remember. 25% of our health at the most may be related to the genes, the drugs, the procedures that we can bring to the table. Whatever that is, 75% still remains with our environment, our mind, our diet, the community we live in. So this is how we look at exercise awareness and smile experience, how we engage flow in cardiac patients or young, healthy people who want to be in athletics. It doesn't matter. All of us, when we try to push our limit, for somebody who is 75 and not very fit, just walking at a slow pace may get them to a 7 or 8. Whereas a 15-year-old athletic cross-country trainer, he might be able to run at 14 miles an hour speed or whatever, and then still not be that stressed. So wherever we are, we want to see how much we are pushing ourselves. So understanding that awareness is the first component. And then comes the smile experience. So this is the fun aspect that I'm going to invite all of you to experience starting today. In everything that you do, we ask people to smile 20 times an hour, no matter what you're doing. But this becomes a huge challenge when you're pushing your body in any exercise. Even moderate exercise, smiling seems unfair. But the reality in sports psychology is when we smile, when we open ourselves to our subconscious, our output in the exercise, in the sport becomes much improved. So that's where this comes from. And we've used this so effectively in cardiac patients. So if you can smile 20 times an hour when you're walking, when you're running, when you're playing sport, that is what is the ability to engage flow. So how does that connect with the flow experience? So this we presented recently in the Cardiology and Rehab Society meeting. And this is what it is. Encouraging flow, a state of calm and deep focus, which can improve exercise compliance during cardiac rehabilitation. So what we will take you through is first understanding what this flow is. It's an intrinsically enjoyable, exceptionally positive state of mind. So for instance, I love to play tennis. So if my skill level is say at 30%, and I was to play tennis with somebody who doesn't know tennis at all, then I'll be bored. What if I were to play tennis with a professional? That skill level would make it so difficult for me that I'll be too anxious and self-conscious and worried who's going to laugh at me. So anxiety will predominate in that experience. So if I were to play tennis with another 50-year-old who is at my level of fitness and my level of tennis, then 1 in 10 times I may have a chance of entering into flow when I commit to the game and give my full best. Then this flow that happens 1 in 10 times makes it worth the while for me to go every day to the tennis court and try to play the sport. So that's what this flow is. So you can actually try and see where you are in your mind. So we'll go through this real fast. So close your eyes for a second. Think about some exercise you did within the last week, or sometimes if you haven't had a chance within the last few weeks, where you are really proud that you did some physical activity. So you close your eyes, you imagined your experience. Now we'll come back and try to grade that particular day. It might have been last Tuesday that you exercised in the evening with your family and you walked in the park, or it might be a sport you played or whatever it is. So looking back, I performed beyond my expectations. 5 means you strongly agree. 3 means you're neutral. 1 means you strongly disagree. We are talking about that particular moment, Tuesday evening, last week or whatever. And then things happened effortlessly and I felt weightless. Many people may score 3 for I'm neutral to these concepts, or they may score 1 if they don't agree. But if that exercise was something that you're so proud of, you may score 4 or 5. It was fun and rewarding experience that I look forward to repeating. So I want to go and do that same stuff again. The sense of myself was lost, so that what was remaining was an intuitive awareness. So this is where the meditation comes in. So when you think back about that experience last week, how much do you agree with this statement? And lastly, the sense of time itself is morphed or just stopped, and long periods feel like a blur or a moment. So depending on how much you score, we are able to say how you connect with yourself through exercise. Does it make sense? So this is the score that one of our friends got. So somebody who scores less than 13 looks at exercise as a job, as a chore, a prescription that they have to fulfill. 14 to 17 exercise becomes fun. So that's where they are engaging with it intuitively. When you score 18, 20, 23, whatever, above 18, then exercise is a real part of who you are. So it's not a job anymore. It's not even for the sake of fun. You're doing it because this is what fulfills you and you do it naturally. So this is the space where you engage in flow during the exercise. We'll go through this engineer who's 50 years of age, who comes into the emergency room with chest pain. Before the doctor sees him in the ER, his heart stops. Luckily, they revive him, shock him back to life. They find the blockage and stent. The heart is weak, but within few months, he's getting better through cardiac rehab, and he participated in our Heartful Living remotely. And within 3 months, his heart squeezes better and he's chest pain free. And this is a graph he drew himself and we published it. This patient tells us that his heart rate is going to from 60 all the way to 100, 120 because he's on the treadmill at 3.7 miles or 5 kilometers an hour. And over time, about 20, 30 minutes later, he gets tired most often. But once in a while, once a week or so, he continues on the treadmill 30, 40, 50 minutes, and the heart rate is going up or staying up because of his medicines and everything. But his exertion level, Borg Disney index, this can go only up to 10. At 10, we just can't breathe anymore. We have to stop the exercise. Although the treadmill is still going on, his exercise effort capacity is still there, and he's not feeling the exertion. He's not feeling the trouble breathing or anything. He's able to continue on the treadmill. That's not stopped yet. So how is it that miraculously he's able to continue this? People who run, they call it second wind, runner's high. And he was experiencing this as part of cardiac rehab because we had taught him this concept of flow. So he would now come back and tell me, Doc, if I eat certain foods at night, if I sleep this many hours, if I wake up refreshed, there is a chance I'll enter into this weird state where I can keep on going on the treadmill, and I'm stopping the treadmill only because it's time for me to go to work. So that next time he goes, he cannot do that. By about 30, 35 minutes, he'll again have to stop. So this happens once in a while for him. And this is a beautiful expression of flow in rehab. So this was his score. And that's why he's able to recognize this again and again. This is again a different person at the age of 69, being a professor in Columbia. Walking in Walmart, he would get short of breath. But this time, he ended up with a heart attack. So we had to put a stent in his heart. And after a few months, this is what happened. He participated in our cardiac rehab along with the Heartful Living program. And he started enjoying exercise awareness and smile. He really took up seriously with this. And he started training with high school kids at the age of 70 after getting stented in his heart. And he would bring back his medals of 5K runs and other accomplishments, so proud that now this is a totally new person who's connecting with his body at a different level at the age of 70, 71. So this happened in 2018. And this graph goes to 2020, but now it's 2022. And he is more fit than ever. And he is engaging regularly, again, 3 to 4 times in fitness training so that he can go and run these races. So this is not cardiac rehab. It's not a chore anymore. This is who he has now become. So these 2 stories we published. So this was his actual score. Before he started with the Heartful Living program, his total score was 14 in April of 2019. And then 2 years, 1.5 years later, his score exceeded 18. So you don't need to go to 25. So when you cross 18, there's an amazing chance that you have internalized the true essence of exercise and connecting with your body through exercise. This last story I want to share with you is a very good friend of mine who went to medical school with me. As a physician, she was very stressed. She woke up one morning and found her husband did not wake up. He had a sudden cardiac death at home and he had passed away. That was the reality in 2016 for her. She had 2 teenage children. She was sedentary at that point. And within 3 years, her life transformed for the better. She's working efficiently, full-time job. She's continuing to be single, but feels fulfilled. Her kids are very much on track despite having only one parent. And she has learned new things that she has never done before, which is swimming and running and competitively biking, and she has become a triathlete. In India, Chennai, where she comes from, it's not that often that doctors take up these things in middle age. And this is what she did. And she shares her story to inspire the other 150 classmates that we went to medical school with, so that they will recognize the value of taking care of their health and connecting with themselves at a deeper level. So her score also went out of the charts once she learned how this flow phenomenon helps her engage in the same exercises and competition that she's now trying to participate in. So our current state of health that healthcare addresses with the medicines and procedures, we can go deeper through lifestyle. And when we change motivation, lifestyle also becomes intuitive. And when we get to the realm of meaning, creativity, and gratitude, then everything is possible. So that's what I want to invite you to engage in. So wherever we are in the outermost circle, we want to explore within ourselves. This is the self-inquiry where we ask, what can I do a little better, little differently, a little more fun? So that we can be a little bit of yoga, Tai Chi, some exercise. It may be sports for somebody who is only 25 and wants to try tennis. Whatever it is, keep exploring something that is safe, but intuitive and different from what you're doing, until you find where this is fun for you, this fulfills you, where you are able to enter into flow. So this is a cardiac rehab program that we've had now for close to 15 years at our VA, where we are able to teach veterans with disabilities how they can find fun in exercise at their home, despite their disabilities. This is a bicycle that's on their dining table. They can do arm weights. There are so many things people with challenges can still accomplish. This is a concept I would like to leave you with, which is aerobic interval training, which means instead of the traditional cardiac rehab where we go to 70% of heart rate and maintain it for 30 minutes, we are going all the way to 80, 90% and sustaining it for a few minutes and then repeating it again and again over the course of lesser duration. So instead of 150 minutes of walking, with 70 or 80 minutes of interval training, we can get the equivalent benefit per week. So if people who are hard pressed for time, interval training may be a good option to consider. So exercise has been a part of regaining health and maintaining wellness for thousands of years. And the important thing that we bring to cardiac rehab is when we lose the sense of time. Doc, I don't know what happened for 30 minutes. I don't know where my time went. I was having so much fun playing in the park or golfing or spending time with my grandchildren. So whatever it is, when you lose the sense of time, that means you're in flow. The exercise that you choose to do is up to you. It can be 1,000 different sports. It can be so many exercises. You can find a gym close by that you can work with. If you recently had a heart problem, your doctor can guide you to a cardiac rehab program for a few months. Just recently at MU, we started intense cardiac rehab last month. So there are so many things that are available, resources in our community. This is actually a race. And you are right if you think this gentleman is racing against the horse. So this is a marathon that happens in a few parts of the world where human beings are able to beat the most, I should say, endurance animal in the world, which is the horse. About 30 to 40% of the time, humans are able to overcome and beat. How is this? Because our human body is designed for endurance. We are not the fastest, we are not the strongest, but we have insane endurance. So that endurance, I'm not going to try and race a horse. I'm nearly 50 years of age. But what I'm trying to say is our body was designed to be exceptionally fit, and endurance has been the reason for us to have succeeded and become the top of the animal pyramid in this existence, because our endurance is out of the world. This is my fitness. All these pictures were taken just before the pandemic for nearly a year. I would participate in the exercise program, and I would bring home these pictures to show my son, who was in high school and training for competitive tennis, that his dad is doing this type of fitness. And these are different coaches who would push my body through this level of fitness. And my real passion has, for the last 15 years, been tennis. I was not a tennis player in school or college when I could have competed. I've played tennis a little bit, but only in the last 10, 15 years, it's become such an integral part of who I am that I really, really look forward to playing tennis. And it is the main exercise that I get. I forget time many times, and I'm so many friends in Colombia where I am able to engage the flow phenomenon at least 2-3 times a month. So that makes it so worth the while for me. So when we, through hunger, gratitude, or exercise awareness and smile experience, this we've not touched upon in this session, the silence and altruism, compassion. So these are the 4 pillars of the High Life program that we have. And they are all meant to improve the sympathetic tone, the vagal tone, to reduce the sympathetic activation, improve endothelial function, transference phenomenon despite rehab issues in disabled people. Bypass patients and microvascular angina patients benefit from this. Happiness through dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin, the dose hormones, and intuitively building not only mental resilience, but directly cardiac resilience as well. So these are the ways in which we are able to engage holistic health. So this is the concept that I guess we'll leave it for next week. How our High Life program differs or complements healthcare system. So we are able to get social determinants of health addressed, and lifestyle is the core of the program using mind-body methods. And we'll spend more time on this concept next week. So to summarize, we engage plant-based whole foods, hunger, gratitude, and flow exercise, and ease, mindfulness, and altruism. This is what we are trying to really accomplish. If we look at a human being's lifespan of 80 years, 85 years, 90 years, whatever it is, 100 years, the lot of it from the middle age onwards, we start out with chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, lipidemia, heart attacks, heart failure. So many things slowly start creeping in, and we slowly move towards our final days. But if we focus on health span, we can optimize the time that we have excellent health. And even though we might improve our longevity, the benefits are several fold more in improving our health span. So that is where Marilyn is now reconnected with herself. So if you look at how we engage this flow, we look at so many mental health issues, and we thought for the first 5 years, 7 years, when people came off their heart medicines and their depression, anxiety medicines, that we are using positive psychology to combat negative health issues and mental health challenges. And my own experience, which I've gained through other patients like Marilyn and so many others, we can spend hours together with their stories, is that we are not fighting with mental health and the negative health impact. We are actually making it so minuscule based on the flow and higher consciousness that we are targeting. We call it uvagai. The word means extreme happiness without any reason. And the type of zest and happiness that our cardiac patients are experiencing, we recently published. So this just got published. And it does not require so many things. And people in their 70s, despite their health issues, they're able to engage just with the hunger, gratitude experience that they explore. They're able to connect at that level of confidence. So their mental health becomes so much easier to regain. So this is an example who is now in her late 90s. For the last 20 years, she flies to Greece to be with her family and swim in the Mediterranean. So that is the energy and a reason for her longevity. She's in her late 90s now. This is somebody I think you might have met. Next week, I'll see if he's able to join us. But for the last 2 years, he's engaged in our program. He started out at 65 with heart failure. The heart squeeze was extremely weak. He had severe leaky valves and irregular heart rhythm and a significant pressure elevation in the lungs. And within 3 months, his heart squeeze got improvement and his medication requirements came down. And he's already within 3 months reporting feeling like he's only in his 50s. And now, after 2 years after continuing in our program, he has totally lost 22% of his weight intuitively. He's not on any weight loss pills, and he did not undergo gastric bypass surgery. He did not undergo a coronary angiogram or heart bypass. And then he did not need the kidney biopsy or dialysis that they thought he would need. He had so many organs not working well, and he is now a healthy 50-year-old. And Marilyn, you met her. Her TV show, you could Google Paul Pepper, Marilyn Lake, and you'll find her story there. And she's here to share her live with you. And this is her story where her actual age is 80, but her biological age is now estimated in the 50s. And that is because of the mind-body methods that she's adopted all in the last 4 to 6 months. And she is telling us how transformative health can be. So thanks so much, Marilyn. So I would like to thank so many collaborators in psychology, whole health, and nephrology, psychiatry, and AI engineers at MU who are helping me in this program. So to leave you, medicine is amazing. It's made so many progresses, but lifestyle, if we embark on embracing a healthier lifestyle, the benefits for our health is so much more. On top of that, if we learn a little bit of mindfulness, the sky is the limit. And when we practice self-inquiry, then there is an opportunity to come off 80-90% of medicines. And we have friends who are joining us today, I think, who are on 30-40 medicines, and they are going for 0 medicines. And this is possible. And it's not because that's what I'm trained in. It's because they are showing me in their life that they go to their various specialists, endocrinologists, arthritis doctors, their psychiatrists, and their primary doctors who are taking them off these medicines. So it's not me taking them off these medicines. So it's an amazing journey. I'm so glad I could share this with you today. I invite you to explore all these opportunities towards improving your heart health, your biological age through self-inquiry and flow. Thank you. Thanks so much. So,
Dr. Chapalingam, you have several questions and comments in the chat.
okay, let's try to go through that first. Do you think the long-held benefits of tea are of little benefit controlling for income? So I don't know about tea, how they have done this, but a little bit of tea may be positive. I don't drink tea, coffee all my life, so I'm not going to start drinking tea for health. But if you're drinking tea, if you take a little bit of it, I think it's going to help you. Does collagen and biotin help the tissues of the heart become more flexible, elastic, and have better stretch and squeeze? Do plant foods contain all the amino acids and hyaluronic acid our tissues need? This is an amazing question. My career has been in stiff hearts, diastolic dysfunction, and I've not specifically tried collagen or biotin, but I've kept up to speed with the literature on this. And these come under supplements. So at that level, you don't need FDA approval. You don't need clinical trials to show efficacy. So people claim a lot, and many people pay a lot of money to try these things. But if you come to me as a heart patient with a stiff heart, I'm not prescribing any of these supplements to improve health. And I don't think any cardiologist is, because there is no evidence base to support it. And if you ask, does plant give the right amount of protein? I'm only now realizing that there are so many layers to that answer. The clear answer is plant protein is all that we need. We don't need animal protein. And when I say we need very little protein, plant protein absorption is much lesser in the human gut compared to animal protein. So if you give 10 grams of animal protein, there's a good chance most of it is absorbed. If you give 10 grams of plant protein, for instance, only a third or half of it may be absorbed. And that may be so beneficial for our kidneys and our overall health. So these things I'm not an expert on, but I'm only now starting to understand myself. This may be some of the mechanisms how our patients are suddenly turning 20 years younger, because they are making that switch to more and more plant-based choice. You don't have to call yourself vegetarian or vegan or anything like that. More and more choices that we have, we recognize we can make a plant-based choice, is going to move towards our health. Would you elaborate on interval training? So I showed that 0 to 10. Right now I'm sitting and chatting, so I'm only exerting myself at, say, a 1, that I'm just talking. If I was to run on the treadmill, I'll be at a 7. If I was running away from a polar bear or a grizzly bear, I'll be at a 10 within half a minute. That's all is my level of fitness, right? I'll push my extreme limit to try and survive. So that is the 10 where I'm not able to breathe. So if cardiac rehab or cardiac fitness, if you go, a 20-year-old goes to a gym and wants cardiac fitness, they are at about 50-60% of their capacity for about 20-30 minutes, where they are developing some sweat. They're a little bit short of breath, and 30 minutes exercise is done. That's great. And 150 minutes of that type of cardiac fitness in a week is sufficient. That means most days of the week, 20-30 minutes would give us that level of fitness. But Scandinavian countries, there's been so much research in the last 20-30 years saying interval training. That means instead of maintaining at a modest level, you go to your real peak level, and nobody can sustain their peak for more than a minute or maybe 2-3 minutes at best. So on, off at your capacity for 4 times. You'll be done in 20 minutes or 15 minutes going to your peak few times. And they say that might be actually more physiological. See, if you go shopping in Walmart and want to carry groceries up a flight of stairs, you don't ramp up and maintain and then cool down. So that's the artificial exercise. In reality, nature is more tuned to sudden bursts of exercise. So interval training may be actually more physiological. So if your heart is healthy and your physician or your cardiologist certifies you're okay, then interval training may be a good way to get more fit and more fun out of the exercise. Okay, there's so much literature on. It's called high intensity interval training, HIIT or AIT, aerobic interval training. You can find a lot of information on this. What do you mean by vagal tone and endothelial function? So again, these are all very important things which cardiologists don't focus on, because we are more tuned towards fixing the acute problem. Somebody's coming with electrical problem, we shock the heart. If there's a blockage, we open the blockage. These things take longer time to fix. I told you with 2 things. One is stiff hearts. The other thing is Takotsubo stress cardiomyopathy. People with severe emotional stress of losing a dear one or losing a job, they might come next morning with severe chest pain without a heart attack. The heart is weak. ECG shows a heart attack. They get helicopter transport to our university and we do the angiogram. We don't find a blockage. So that is what is called Takotsubo stress cardiomyopathy. Usually within a week or 2, they recover their heart function. So for them, this vagal tone may be a big deal. Endothelial function may be a big deal. Now in the last 3-4 years with our Heartful Living program, what we are seeing is microvascular angina, which is endothelial function related chest pain. A third of heart patients have severe chest pain without any tight blockages. So for them, understanding the role of this autonomic balance, vagal means parasympathetic, sympathetic is stress hormones. So when we balance it right, and when we improve the endothelial function, there is so much scope not only to relieve chest pain, but also to improve long-term blood pressure control and risk factor control and reduce substantially the risk of future heart attacks. So this works so well for people who had a heart attack or for people who had a stress cardiomyopathy that I do research on, because they have 2 to 4% risk of recurrence every year. To limit that risk and to give them the confidence to move forward in their life, the ways that we practice and improve endothelial function can play a huge role. We don't have specific testing in our hospital yet, but there are so many tests to measure these things also. Is whey-based protein common in many supplements? A safe way to build muscle as we age? Beautiful question. Building muscle at any age requires fitness and working with a trainer if that's what you want to do, or using some weights at home safely, you can build muscle. Food has very little role. You should get adequate nutrition, and it need not be animal protein, preferably plant protein. Whey protein has a lot of challenges. We don't need to get into too much detail, but the best source of protein that I would recommend for any age, the teenagers wanting to compete in athletics or older people trying to maintain their muscle mass or build some more muscle, the best protein would be from real food. That protein comes from black beans, red beans, kidney beans, which are in $1 cans, and you can get no salt added version. Spinach, tofu, they have insane amount of protein. Green beans, green peas, the real vegetables, they have sufficient amount of protein. And then lentils, they have so high amount of protein. Quinoa, brown rice, whole grain foods, they have enough amount of protein that we don't need supplements unless there is some chewing issues or some other health issues that we don't get adequate nutrition. What is albumin? What food improves albumin levels? Albumin is the measure of protein in the blood. And by eating protein, we cannot get the albumin level much higher. That's what I believe after working in this for 15 years. Nutritionists, dietitians, they may say slightly differently, but the best way to optimize albumin level is by improving our whole health, by eating right, exercising right, and avoiding things that increase inflammation and other problems. What are indicators that stress test is needed? How does a stress test progress? What do they do to you? What skills are required? Jumping, running, for how long? So if you're asking about what a stress test is, anybody above the age of 40, especially if there is risk of heart attack in the family, I would recommend that you talk to your doctor about having a screening test done, because sometimes without angina, people end up with heart attack. You met my friend, Dr. Anbumani. She shows her story because at the age of 42, she woke up one day. This is about nearly 8 years ago, and her husband didn't wake up. So like that, in real life, a third of heart attacks, they don't have a chance to call 911 or get to medical help. So it is a real concern. So talk to your doctor if you think you have risk of heart problems. And the stress test means we get you on the treadmill under very safe circumstances. We measure your blood pressure, check your heart out. We're monitoring every heartbeat, and we get you on the treadmill for a few minutes under supervision. So that really, in the last 20 years that I've practiced, I've not seen anybody having a big problem. We've seen a few people who develop a heart attack during the stress test, but it's a very small, subtle manifestation of a heart problem, which is actually much better than if it happens the same night at home. So don't worry about having a stress test. It's not risky. It's a very safe thing. And for people with disabilities, we have chemical ways of stressing the heart and finding out the safe solutions to understand your risk so that we can give you the confidence to move forward better. So I cannot emphasize the importance of cardiac risk assessment, which may include a stress test for all people at every point. Above the age of 20, I would say it's better to have some checkup done. My daughter is only 12. She went to her pediatrician for a wellness check, and they checked her cholesterol. I didn't even know. Pediatricians check cholesterol, so I have to look at their guidelines. So I'm glad they checked it for her. And she's asking, Dad, how do I get healthier? She's a swimmer and she's healthy, but she wants to improve her cholesterol profile at the age of 12. So there's nobody who's too young to start taking care of their health. I hope I answered that. Is high protein okay if you are lifting heavy weights for muscle building? Lifting heavy weights, if your health is otherwise good, is a good thing to build muscle. I wouldn't say heavy weights. I would go only to modest weights. Myself, I don't do more than modest weights. But if you're trying to build muscle, even then a little extra protein is needed, but you don't need too much protein because there is a fine balance for everything. Even running or bicycling, if you do too much, that can put stress on your heart. Same thing, weight training can also be stressful, especially if we start at an older age. But too much protein, I just showed you a slide saying it increases the risk for heart problems and diabetes. That's very surprising. I just came across that in a lecture last week from WashU. So it's very new science that is throwing light on our protein proportion in the food. So be careful about how much protein you're adding to your diet, thinking you're improving your health. Okay. It's interesting to see that protein intake increases chances of getting type 2 diabetes. I see many people taking protein powder drinks and getting type 2. So this is all evolving science. We don't have the final verdict on it. These are signals from science that is looking at some aspects of it. So that's the evidence saying more protein may actually increase risk of diabetes. And she also presented some other evidence saying insulin resistance, which we want to minimize, and that happens with weight reduction. But if your protein intake is high, the insulin resistance seems to persist. So people with diabetes may have to, in the future, we don't have the evidence yet, but in the future, we may have enough evidence to say, reduce the proportion of protein in your food if you want to get better diabetes control. We may come to that point in the next 5 years, I don't know. Are there physical or chemical tests for vagal and endothelial tone? Yes, we do have tests for it, and it's mostly in the research realm. In clinical practice, it's hard to find the right people to do it. Are chemical ways of stressing the heart equivalent? What is the difference to the heart? For the heart, it's sometimes actually safer than getting on the treadmill, but they are equivalent, comparable to the treadmill-based information, but treadmill itself gives you direct information on your fitness, which we don't get with the chemical stress. But we do the chemical stress a lot because many people have challenges in getting on the treadmill safely. So I think we finished answering all the questions on the chat. This was so interesting, today's discussion. So for people who still haven't had a chance to say hello to us, we still have another few minutes. I think we are good on time. So if people would like to say hello to us, tell us how, whatever questions you have or discussion points, how our programming has helped you change your life. It might inspire more people. So people who are trying heartful living, you're welcome to share your experience. We are not going to point any fingers, but you can unmute yourself.
Did you say that you would recommend a stress test for somebody that has a family history of cardiovascular disease, even if you don't seem to have a problem?
Above the age of 40, especially if there is family history, talk to your doctor and say, do I need a stress test? Talk to them. It might be beneficial because all the time it need not manifest as chest pain. There are some other anginal equivalents which people may not recognize off the hand. So talk to your doctor, they'll guide you the right way. Considering a stress test above the age of 40 is a very good thing. Except for those who are already doing everything for fitness and they are pushing their limit and exercising well and having absolutely no cardiac limitations. Even if you're 70, 80, 90, you may not need a stress test. For those who are trying to engage more with their body and who are going to explore how to start this in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, definitely talking to your doctor before engaging in something more than modest is highly recommended.
What do you think? What do you think about artificial meat?
Artificial meat. I tried it a little bit because I try to stay out of having meat if I can for the most part. And it tastes good. But when I read the ingredients, it's sort of too many things go in and it's highly processed. So that is, I strongly believe that less processed real food is sufficient. So if we can change our taste towards enjoying healthy food without having to go towards more processed packaged foods, we may be better off in the big picture. Before we go for more questions and run out of time, let's finish the grape experience. I'm going to request you to take the one grape in your hand. Okay, so we'll see if we can get into flow with this one grape. Typically, we don't recommend flow through reading, through your grant work, through your research, through movies or watching sports. We recommend entering into flow when you're panting, when you're sweating, when you're exercising, when you're gardening, when you're physically pushing yourself. But today, because of us meeting in Zoom, we'll do it with this one piece of grape. Okay, so do you want to show me your grape? Or whatever fruit or whatever you have in your hand. Okay. So last time we practiced a little bit of silence. So we can sort of add that also into this. Let's sit back in our chair as best as we can. Sit up erect. Try to relax the whole body. Let us smile for a brief moment. It's an amazing opportunity for us to all connect on a beautiful Monday morning here, Monday evening for people from India. And we have enough health to connect and explore longevity and zest. So let's relax our shoulders. And then we're going to try this. How many of you are already hungry? If you can just raise your hands. I know people who are smiling and raising their hands. I had my dinner at 6 p.m. yesterday. I'm not planning to eat anything for most of today. So this is the first thing I'm going to have. So I don't need to practice this in mindfulness or self-inquiry or anything. When I put this in my mouth, it's going to taste super yum. It doesn't need rocket science, right? because I'm already hungry. I woke up at 5 o'clock today morning, pretty hungry. And all that I had is some water, and I got some more water. This is how my whole day is going to go. So try to, if you're not finding this grape so flow inducing, tomorrow try the same grape when you're a little more hungry. Okay? So now I'll ask you to leave it in your mouth for about 20 seconds. Already my mouth is starting to water, thinking this grape is entering into my mouth. So play it on this side, that side for 20 to 25 seconds. Already the shell will become very thin. You can already taste the inner flavors. And then about half a minute is already done. Then you bite. That first bite is the flow. It's a very deep experience of life itself is contained in this grape. So I invite you to try the grape or whatever else you have at home, and we'll start the exploration. Who wants to try one more grape? You can try it, I guess, afterwards. I thoroughly enjoyed that grape. I don't think mine lasted one whole minute. First 20, 30 seconds, I waited around. And then once I started biting it, it just disappeared too fast. I guess I was too hungry. We don't have that much time for every grape. We all have our lives to lead. But there's an 8-year-old kid who tried the first grape and said he was so happy. And we tried a second grape. This was for a kid's session. And he said the second grape tasted even better. So what he is telling us at the age of 8 is what we experience today in that one grape is just the beginning. How much more of life we can experience is only up to us. Nobody can come and tell us, right? So that is my invitation to all of you to explore the wonders of life using whatever tools that life throws at us.
Dr. Chakalingam,
Yes.
There are a couple more questions.
Let's go through that.
Thank you.
Dr. C saw your question about alternates to statins. So if there are many patients who go to the Google doctor. Internet tells you so many scary things about medicine. So people come and say, Doc, I will not be on a statin. So for them, there are some other medicines, but also red rice, yeast, these things might be beneficial. And then fish oil is beneficial. And we are finding moving towards a plant-based predominant diet might bring the cholesterol significantly lower. Reducing mental stress, sleeping enough hours brings cholesterol down. And these are the things that we can do. So for people who have statin intolerance, we try different statins or try alternate day low dose statins first and then slowly build up the dose if we need to. Okay, there are several things that we can work around with. How many grams of protein do you get each day? What are your favorite plant proteins? So I mentioned what I enjoy. I come from southern India. We have plenty of lentils, dal we call it, and they are very high in proteins. And I gave up white rice about 10 years ago because I was pre-diabetic. So I moved to brown rice and quinoa. And quinoa has so much protein in it. And then I like tofu and all the vegetables, I thoroughly enjoy them. So instead of, I add more portions of vegetables in my diet, and fruits I have plenty. So this alone gives me more protein than I imagine I would need. So I'm not measuring my protein levels. And when I play 2 hours of singles tennis. In fact, now I'm able to do it 6 days of the week with 20-year-olds compared to 5 years ago when I could play only 3 days in a week. After that, I would be sore. If I play Monday, Tuesday, I would have to take rest, and then Wednesday I could go play again. But now I can choose to play 6 or 7 days in the week. And that's because the overall lesser quantity of food is going in, and I'm not obviously counting the percentage protein in my diet or anything. I just eat healthy, predominantly 2-meal diet. I don't have 3 meals anymore. Sorry, we don't have any. Oh, for the grapes, I think she's saying, if I don't eat for a long time, I get headaches. Yes, headaches can be a problem with fasting. And the simple way to overcome that is with water. If you drink sufficient amount of water, headaches won't be there. After a couple of weeks, for me, it took maybe 3-4 weeks in the summer of 2018 when I started intermittent fasting. By 4th or 5th time, the headaches is not a problem. So today I'm saying I am not going to eat most of the day today. But if I don't eat for most of the day tomorrow also, I'll be okay. That confidence for 24, 36 hours comes easily from, if I don't have water, I'll not be that confident. But with water alone, that confidence is there. If you are diabetic, on insulin and other challenges, we don't recommend fasting. For people with liver failure, we don't. For pregnant people, we don't. People with headaches, when you learn this the right way, there is many patients who come back and say, "Doc, this has helped my headache. The frequency has gone down." But acutely, if you don't go without food, headache is a sign of hypoglycemia, or body is trying to create the counter-regulatory hormone. So initially, there is a chance. Just increase your water intake, try to distract yourself. And if the headache is bothering you, have some healthy food. I love banana when I'm hungry, when I'm fasting. So try some healthy things and then give up the fast that day. Try it again a week later. You might do a little better. The body is also learning what you're expecting out of the body when you're fasting. Okay? During intermittent fasting, say not eating between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. How soon before ketosis begins? This is an amazing question. Science says it takes 3 days, which is like 72 hours for our body to go into ketosis. And that science is from wherever, in young, healthy people who just don't eat, suddenly they can measure their levels every few hours. But for people who are already into eating healthy, eating right, for them, who are mostly plant-based, it's so easy to go into natural ketosis. Yesterday evening, I had dinner. So within 12 hours, when I woke up today morning, I was already in ketosis. I'm in ketosis 3-4 times a week. I have the Keto Mojo kit that's like $30-40 online. It's just like finger prick for glucose. You can measure your serum ketone levels with a finger prick. You can measure it through the breath level also. There are so many tools. And 99% of the patients who go through Heartful Living in the last 10 years, we've not measured ketone levels. Only now we are writing grants to the NIH to see how to measure this and show the scientific community how our methods work. But to go into ketosis, it doesn't take very long. There is a good chance if you do it right, 5 days of the week, you can be a little bit in ketosis. Marilyn is in ketosis for the last 4 months, several times of the week. That's how she's regaining so much health. I've not asked her to check her ketone levels, but if she wishes to, she can get that Keto Mojo kit and check it. At her age, I don't expect her ketone levels to be very high, but what she is getting is sufficient for her to recover her health. She attended the last Osher course and she asked me, "Doc, I'm 80 years. Your math goes only to the age of 65. What are you going to tell for my heart failure?" I said, "Marilyn, I don't know. At 80, I have not done the science." But now Marilyn is the science. She is the proof that at 80, heart failure can be reversed. And ketosis is the mechanism. And even that ketone levels doesn't have to go to very high level. Normal is less than 0.18. So if it's 0.2, 0.3, that's all that you need. And even that once or twice a week. So doing the right thing the right way is sufficient. But if you wish to measure ketone levels, it doesn't have to be at 3 or 5 ketone level, which is what is called nutritional ketosis. Our levels are much lesser and much more safer and easily attainable by day-to-day living. Okay? What are the indicators that you're experiencing ketosis? My love for food increases. Today morning, I woke up dreaming about food. So that is a sign of ketosis. And you'll feel a little dip in the energy level. And then when we drink water to take our attention away from it, you may feel a little cold, a little shiver. And everybody feels it a little differently. Headache is a good sign early on, but now I don't get any headaches, even if I go 14, 20, 30, 36 hours. I don't go for much more than 26 hours in the last year or two. Okay. What is the safe level of excellent? So ketoacidosis is a very bad word. It's a medical emergency that happens in diabetics. And that type of ketosis we are not talking about. For that, you need 5, 10, 15 serum level. Here we are talking about less than 1, 0.3, 0.4. That's all is needed. And it will not suddenly jump up beyond that. If you fast for only 20 hours, 24 hours once a week, it will not go much more than that. If you reach 0.3, 0.5, you'll be very happy if you wish to check it. But you don't even need to check it, because for the last 15 years, my patients have done this very safely, looking at this water as a friend and smiling as an important aspect of being a little hungry. If you're not able to smile, that means something is not that intuitive and effortless for you. It might be better to go to a comfort zone with the food and then re-approach this at a different point. Another day, tomorrow or next week, we have plenty of opportunity to try these things at our own pace. We don't have to go by any doctor prescribed regimen. Okay. Safe level of ketone is less than 2, I would say. 0.2 to 2 is the safest level of ketones for cardiac patients and for people who are using natural ketosis towards health. We are not promoting ketogenic diet or any fancy things. This is done intuitively at low cost. In fact, this is cost saving. So many of my patients come back to me and say, Doc, out of my grocery bill per month, I'm spending only a third currently. And this year, it's made so much difference for people because the gas prices have gone up. They're able to travel to Alabama and West Coast in their car to visit their grandchildren because they're able to use that money they save out of groceries towards travel and experiencing life in different ways. So this is where I feel I'm encouraging and supporting whole health.
Dr. Chakalingam, are you aware of the hand that has been up for a while?
No, I'm glad that you pointed it out. I was focusing on the questions. Hi, Liz. We'd love to hear from you what this has been for you.
So I just wanted to share, when they were asking about ketosis, I found an intermittent fasting app. And so it will alert me like, hey, you're in ketosis. So like right here, it gives me a little clock and tells me that I'm in the ketosis state. So that kind of helps me keep pushing for a little longer, to keep fasting a little bit longer, because I'm like, oh, I'm in ketosis right now. So that is really helpful, I think.
So that app, how does it know that you're in ketosis?
Because I put the times when I start my fasting, and then it has a timer, like a countdown clock.
Okay.
So it'll count how many hours. It's not actually
measuring your ketone levels. It's not measuring your blood or your breath. But it's just assuming that you're in ketosis, I guess.
Right, based on when I stopped eating and
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So next time we can check it in the office, or you can get that Keto Mojo to actually measure it also. That's our opportunity. So that you'll know where you are also, if you would like to do that. Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this. I'm going to explore this app, so it might help more people to connect with themselves better. So you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Liz?
So I change up my fasting time based on the day. Some days, if I'm able to keep myself distracted, I can fast a little bit longer. I've been eating more of the leafy green salads and fruit before I eat my protein. And I try to stick with the whole foods. Lately, I've had a little bit of a snack, but I keep it's very easy for me to just have a little bit, instead of before I would eat instead of like a couple of tortilla chips, I would eat like half a bag. Now I'm able to just take a few tortilla chips and some hummus, and I'm okay with stopping. I don't feel like I need to keep snacking. It's easier for me to notice when I feel satisfied, instead of keep going, eat as fast as I can to get more food. I'm able to stop and enjoy what I'm eating and notice when my stomach is feeling satisfied.
This is beautiful, Liz. See, I cannot talk like this because I've never had a weight issue. Although I changed my diet, my pre-diabetes of 107 blood glucose level came down to 70 and it stayed there without any medicines for over 15 years now. But I've not been through this challenge of trying to lose weight. I've had thousands of patients doing it. But you are the one now in our group telling us what people after gastric bypass surgery also have to do. People think after gastric bypass, the weight goes away on its own. But that weight a lot of times comes back, or it may not even succeed. Many people don't even succeed losing weight with gastric bypass. Whereas in this method, which you are describing, you're using your mindfulness to shrink your dietary requirement and your stomach size intuitively. And this works for people who already had gastric bypass 3 times and failed. They've also learned this. Whereas you've never needed that surgery. So you will, throughout life, you will not need to have that type of procedure to control your weight. So my request to you will be to continue this as long as that 20 smiles remains. If you're getting stressed up, eat some more, enjoy the food, and then next day, the day after, you can come back to this. You already accomplished so much in the last few weeks that you've been in this program. So I want to congratulate you wholeheartedly. Are you feeling this flow also? See, you might not be into sports, but are you able to feel that inner energy? That you're losing sense of time and activities because you're a little more hungry.
Yes. I'm feeling more in the flow. I'm enjoying my job, especially at work, because I used to not be a morning person. And when I work on the weekends at the hospital, I work in the OR, I would be so tired and groggy and just, it took me forever to wake up because I had to wake up at 4 in the morning to get ready for work. But now when I come to work, I can tell so many of my coworkers are still not morning people. And I'm just like, good morning, we're here. So
when we are hungry, we are all day people.
Yeah.
We are not morning or afternoon or evening people.
Yeah.
So nice.
But I'm hungry and I'm excited to be at work, and it keeps me motivated. I get more work done because the more I do and enjoy, the quicker it goes by, and then it's time to eat.
So compared to your grocery bill, say before you met me first time, how much is your grocery bill for just one person?
My grocery bill?
Roughly.
Well, I have 3 kids.
No.
I don't think...
If you can somehow in your mind separate it out just for yourself.
Oh, okay. Just for me. Yeah, it's a lot lower. A lot lower.
What percentage roughly?
Probably half. Half. Yeah.
And your food intake compared to before you met me, your plate overall in a whole day, how much is the proportion of food that you're eating? Whatever it might be, composition.
I would say about 70% because I don't snack anymore. I drink a lot of water.
Good.
A lot of water.
Down by 70% is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're only consuming 30% of what you used to do in the past.
Yep.
Amazing. Keep smiling. What else can I say?
Yeah, and I'm already down 15 pounds. And how much did you lose? 10, I think. Was it 10?
Amazing. And how long have you been with High Life?
I started, I think, August 26th, so a month. Yeah.
Extra clap for the flow that you mentioned, that you're waking up to work so happily. That is the ability to connect with our job. So nice. Any other suggestions? Because we might have only a couple more minutes before
I got a little bit to say.
Please, my friend, we need to hear from you.
Yeah. When I started, I wasn't necessarily in it to like lose weight, so to speak. My father, he had a lot of heart issues. He had heart disease, and he passed away from one last really big heart attack on
July 4th, I think.
I think it was the 3rd because we didn't find him till a couple days later. But it really kind of scared the life out of me to make sure that my heart was in pretty good condition, because it was just it's something that's really gone through the men in my father's side of the family. But like I said, I wasn't really starting it to lose weight. I was just trying to get my heart healthier. But what I have noticed is my moods have like changed completely around. I used to be a really negative person, and lately just with the fasting and all that and trying to smile a little bit more every day and increasing my water intake and all that, I've just kind of noticed like my positivity has gone up. I'm smiling more, I'm laughing more. I used to send considering things that I would have never considered before. Like I was an amateur wrestler in high school, and there's a possibility that we could be moving soon. And there's a area where there's open mat sessions, and my daughter is in the amateur wrestling as well. And I'm giving serious thought to buying a new pair of wrestling shoes and some knee pads and going in training with her. And yeah, it's just my positivity level's gone through the roof compared to where I was. And yeah, I've saw a very large decrease in depression levels and things like that. So I might not be losing as much weight as her, but I mean, I'm seeing a change in a different way compared to her.
Amazing. So I don't know who to thank more, but I'll thank both of you. The thing is, last month we had the editor-in-chief of psychedelic medicine from Kansas come and give us a grand rounds. What he is talking about is refractory depression and refractory anxiety that come to the psychiatrist, give their medicines, cognitive behavioral therapy, and still they're not improving. For them, they have shocking in the brain, or ECT we call it, or now they are exploring psychedelic medicines based hypnosis to try and get them out of the depression. I presented our methods to that group in Kansas, and they want to adopt High Life for refractory depression and refractory anxiety as a complementary tool, because there's really no risk with our methods. And if some people are able to connect and get that mental resilience built up, just like I showed, then they may not need any further advanced therapies, or their quality of life might improve so much more. So they have a med psych clinic where they're going to implement this next month, hopefully. So you are telling me, because I met you in clinic and we talked about your heart health, but I did not go into your depression. I didn't know you had depression, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it's helped you.
I'm also autistic. So I have a lot more difficulties with texture of foods and flavors of foods. I've also read up online that people with autism have a harder time breaking away from artificial sweeteners and things like that. And I will admit, I have fallen off the wagon a couple of times here and there. It just gets really busy at work, and I realize, hey, I haven't eaten all day, and I'm very hungry right now, and I've fasted for like 10 to 15 hours. Sometimes I don't always make the wisest decision, just because we both work at MU hospital, and you know, we have the essentials and we have the grill, and sometimes I'm like, I really want something grilled, and I'll attempt to work some greens in there. Like we have the small containers of salads that we can purchase as well. I try my best to get at least one of those, and I try to settle for like a grilled chicken. I try to go without the bun. Sometimes I just forget to ask, but I do still attempt as often as I can, even when I fall off the wagon, to try and like keep part of myself on the wagon. But like I said, it's kind of hard with me having autism, trying to break away from the artificial sweeteners of like a soda that I used to drink. I used to drink sodas all the time. Like I would never drink water.
How many cans would you drink in a day on average?
Oh my God. Like,
I'd be like, I think 10.
I'd get a 24 pack, and I could probably burn through the 24 pack, half of it at least, in a day.
So now how much are you drinking?
As far as sodas go, I barely even have a soda ever now. Like occasionally, maybe I'll have, because fountain drinks, they kind of hit a little bit different. So like I'll go down to Essentials or I'll go down to the grill. I'll get a grilled chicken. I'll get my greens and everything else. And then that little bitty piece of me is like, you know what? I think a fountain soda wouldn't be too bad right now. But I do try to stay away from them as much as possible and
maybe you can
gravitate towards
come
water.
off the
I
video so we
do
can
have
hear
a
you better,
problem with
because your video is sort of interrupting. So maybe you can turn off the video so we can hear your voice better.
And Dr. Chakalinga,
It's over time.
there are just, the time is there. And also there are just a couple more questions in the chat if you have time.
Excellent. Listen, Ken. So thanks so much. Any other last thoughts, Ken, that you had? My only request is take up that wrestling. That is where you're going to find the flow. Because a lot of things we are taking away the soda, taking away this food, that. But once you add that thing that's so fun for you, then everything will align so much better. And that too with your daughter getting into sports. So that will be 10 times more motivating for you to engage once again in that sport or any other sport. Just walking, running is great. Bicycling is fine. Tennis, whatever you choose. And don't try to build too much muscle. So as a person with the family history, risk and other things, my suggestion would be to build modest muscle. And then I guess wrestling you can do at different weight levels, right? So that's what I'm trying to suggest. Not to become like Arnold Schwarzenegger, extreme muscle building, but where we are, we can build more tone, that sort of thing. Make sense? Excellent. So let me answer a couple more quick questions. Unless you had anything else to say, Ken? No, okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. I can't thank both of you enough. Thank you. When you mentioned about the depression, and then when you mentioned that you're entering into wrestling again, so that is where this flow comes in. So then all of this are just one which we are discussing in different aspects, but all of this is your intuition. That is what we are talking about. Thanks so much. So what is the name of the app? I'm not sure what app Becca is asking about. Do forced smiles work as well as natural smiles? See, 20 smiles is just a overall number that we give just to encourage people to think big and just connect with that gratitude. That's all we are requesting. Smile as much as you can. And forced smile works amazingly well. If you smile naturally, that's a win-win. But otherwise, just force yourself to smile. Your logical mind will align with your subconscious and find some reason to say, okay, this is probably the reason I'm smiling. So I invite you to find some reasons to smile. Even if you don't find reasons, make a habit of being smiling. Yesterday, I played a very tough tennis match with an Indian player who has played nationally at India, and he's only half my age. I got the second set of him and I was nearly already beat, and I was smiling a lot. The reason is that smile relaxes my body, improves my vagal tone. I guess it improves my endothelial tone. 1.5 hours at noon temperature of 110 degrees on ground, I was able to play a little better by smiling. So my request to you is through the day, smile. When you're stressed, smile more. And today's session on exercises, smile when you're exercising, when you're sweating a little bit, when you're pushing our limit. That is the best time to smile. The rest of the time, smile will become more natural. Okay? Excellent, excellent. So we'll break off today. See you next Monday, same time. Unless any last quick thoughts from anybody? No? Amazing.
I just want to remind everyone that next week is our last session, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's already going by quickly, but Dr. Chakalingam, we so thank you for your time and all of your expertise in sharing with us. And thanks everyone who contributed. We had a lot of contributors today, both on chat and by unmuting. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Friends.
Goodbye, everybody.